Go.
Streaming from South Africa to the world. This is the Stonks Go Moon podcast. What just happened? We break it down so you don't have to.
Welcome everyone to the Stonks Go Moon podcast. My guest today, friend of the show, returning guest Robert Manella, founder of Equity Research and best-selling author of the book, Heavily Redacted, a JP Morgan Whistleblower's Journey. Welcome to the pod.
Thanks, Rocco. Good to be back.
So, you might know, I've noticed my mood is a bit somber. This isn't a normal pod. Basically, a couple of months ago, Robert, you sent me a message. It's sort of a nonchalant thing like we always do. I mean, we send each other messages and you're like, hey,
Right.
Rocco, a bit of bad news. I've got cancer. And I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Because it was just the nonchalant way of how you put it. So I'm going to set the stage and then we'll get into it. Otherwise, I'm afraid I'm going to get choked up and we're not going to get...
Sure.
All right. So Robert Manella's journey through acute myeloid leukemia, also called AML, is a profound story of resilience and determination. Diagnosed with AML, a severe and rapidly progressive cancer of the blood and bone marrow, Mennella faced daunting odds with a survival rate of only 20% after 5 years. His decision to opt for outpatient treatment, despite the intensity and challenges, demonstrates his will to fight on his own terms. And that's how I've always known you, my friend.
Thank you. That's very nice of you.
That is so. I think my first question, just off the cuff, because this is the first time we spoke, I just sent you back. No, you're going to beat this because that's how I know you. You're like the strongest son of a bitch that I know.
Thank you.
It's going to take more than cancer to pull you down. What sort of went through your mind when you first heard the diagnosis? I think that's my first point of call, but also like what were you experiencing leading up to that? Like, were you tired, fatigued? What was going on?
Exactly. So, you don't just find out all of a sudden you have leukemia.
Yeah.
There has to be a symptom that manifests itself that leads to the possibility of leukemia. In my case, that's what it was at the end of the day. But for me, it was anemia, where your red blood cell count goes below an acceptable level. Now, the red blood cells carry oxygen to the blood. White blood cells prevent diseases. And so when your red blood cell counts are low, as you can imagine, you get very tired from doing just a little bit of physical activity. For me, it was like walking up and down one flight of stairs, and I was winded and tired. And I was like, "Whoa, this is not good."
Yeah.
What's going on here, right? So it all came about when I came out of the shower one day, a really hot shower, and I just felt like I was overheating. And I've had some of these episodes before where I'll just get really, really hot and just start sweating, for no reason that I knew of in the past.
Okay.
But it turned out that anemia was what I had before, and I guess I lived with it, kind of at the lower end of the acceptable level. But in this case, I had gone down to half the acceptable level. So the acceptable level is between 13 and 17 RBCs for a male, and I was at 6.6. So because I had these symptoms, I went to my primary care physician. I said, "Listen, I'm feeling this way." He goes, "All right, let's do your annual checkup while you're here."
Okay.
Took my blood, and they called me within like a couple of days, and they said very frantically, "You've got to run over to the nearest emergency room." and I was.
Did they tell you over the phone, or was it more of a case of, "Hey, you got to come in, we have to talk"?
No, it wasn't. We got come in and talk. It was like you have
Okay.
to go to as soon as you get this message,
Okay.
please go to your nearest emergency room and tell them that your RBC levels are 6.5. I think they said it was.
At
So
that, okay, so at that stage, did you know? Or did you quickly Google what that means? Or,
um, well, I didn't know what it meant right away.
yeah,
I was more concerned with their instruction to get to the hospital, so I
yeah,
just
yeah.
got there, and
Okay,
then I
sorry.
started talking to the doctors
Mm,
about, hey, what's going on here? You
mm,
know, so I'm sitting in the emergency room and taking more blood and doing a whole bunch of tests, and they said, well, your RBCs are low for a reason.
mm.
So there's a number of reasons for what it could be. And so they referred me to a gastrointestinal doctor to
Mm,
check my GI tract
mm.
because it could be caused from internal bleeding
Okay.
that you might not even know about. So they want to do colonoscopy and an endoscopy
Jeez.
to see
Okay.
if there was internal bleeding. And then they also at the same time referred me to the hematologist to check for signs of cancer.
Okay.
So I did the hematologist first, right? She did what they call a bone marrow biopsy. Essentially, what they do is
That hurts, right?
no, they'll give you something for it before they drill into your hip bone.
Oh shit.
But
Okay.
I'll tell you a quick crazy story about what
Yeah.
happened on my last bone marrow biopsy. She hit the sciatic nerve, and yeah, the sciatic nerve goes throughout like almost your entire body, but especially down your leg. And so my legs started
Yeah. Yeah.
compressing
Yeah. Yeah.
like I was being electrocuted.
Yeah. I've heard about
And
that.
I was like, whoa, what's going on here? And she was like, no, no, it's okay. And it really wasn't okay because she had missed. She wasn't supposed to hit the nerve.
Okay.
But
Right. So.
essentially, I had to deal with that for like 10 or 15 minutes of her hitting it 3 or 4 times, before she
Okay.
actually got enough marrow out of the bone with
Okay.
her little drill thing. So she got that out. I wasn't happy about that one.
I can.
But the first one went off without a hitch. I didn't feel a thing.
Yeah.
So she sends it in, and it comes back, and we have an appointment. And she says you have what they call bone marrow blasts. Blasts are when white blood cells don't fully mature,
Mm,
but they're released into your bloodstream, and those are leukemia cells. And
okay.
so I had a very high level of them.
Okay.
So she said, you have cancer, and that's what she told me.
And what
And
what what kind of went through your head?
well, I'm always the type of person to maybe just like not accept
Oh.
things as they are. Um, but I try to see things as I want them to be. So, in that respect, I thought to myself, no, no, you're wrong. I'm thinking to myself, I don't have cancer. And if I do have cancer, whatever it takes, I'm gonna get rid
Yeah.
of it.
Okay.
Um, and then, she became like a little emotional. She touched me on the shoulder and so forth, which is very, very kind.
Okay.
And, I felt a little emotional for like my grandkids at the moment.
Mm,
So I did get a little bit emotional at the time because, at first I felt like, no, I'm just going to beat this, but then she was kind of like sympathizing with me, which made me feel like, oh, maybe I
oh
should
shit. Yeah. It's sort
not
of
be
that.
so positive,
Yeah. It sort of
trying to bring me
envelops
down.
you. Yeah.
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 So,
Yeah. Uh,
anyway,
okay. So then now they obviously they start to talk about treatment, right? So,
right.
which is a
So,
big where the whole thing hinges on the whole route that you basically took.
exactly.
Let's go through that.
Sure. So she's a hematologist. So a
Mm-hmm.
hematologist is basically a blood doctor.
Mm.
So she referred me to an oncologist who's a cancer doctor.
Okay.
And I spoke to the cancer doctor by Zoom, and he said
Okay.
you have leukemia, and here's what I recommend you do about it.
Yeah.
I said, okay, what? He goes, well, you'll be in the hospital for 30 days. And right away, I said to myself, no, not doing that. But go ahead. I continued to listen to him, right?
Okay.
Because
Hear
that was
you,
not
not
an
do.
option right off
Yeah.
the bat.
I hear you. I'm not doing that. Okay.
Yeah, just right off the bat, I was just like, I just felt like I don't, I don't feel like a first impression for me is everything. So if
Yeah.
right off the bat I feel like you're saying that I have to do this right away, and obviously you're not just a patient, you're a customer to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's
it's
true.
really sick. It's really like, have you seen sick
Yeah.
care instead of health care?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sick care. If you're sick, you're a good customer. If you're healed and better, you're not so much.
And that's actually,
So I
sorry,
said,
that's a very important part that you bring up, that whole
yeah,
part of being a customer and actually having your own patient advocacy, right? Like, what is in
right,
my best interest, and not necessarily in the, well, the doctor, healthcare, whatever's best interest.
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, exactly. So, I guess he wanted to recommend what he thought would be a cure for the leukemia because, um, anyway, he wanted me to go in for 30 days for intensive chemotherapy.
Yeah.
And then the idea is the chemotherapy basically kills all the cells in your body all the way down to like where you're almost, at the edge of death. They're keeping you barely alive, in the hospital bed. And then it's at that point where you get a bone marrow transplant.
Mm.
And I could have gotten that from a sibling or one of my kids. They all agreed to do it.
Okay.
And but that's the only way the only way they know to cure it is to take the stem cells from someone else, make
Okay.
sure they're compatible, put them in you.
Yes.
So unlike a blood transfusion, you don't necessarily take on the chromosomes and the DNA of the person that you get the transfusion from.
Yes.
But when you get a stem cell transplant, you actually take on the genetic makeup of the person. So my sister, I guess I'm a lot like my sister physically, but to be more like her, I don't know if that would affect it, but it was interesting to hear that kind of little side note. So anyway, he said that after the intensive chemo, you'll get the transplant. So basically, you'll be in the hospital for 30 days, 2 weeks before to prep with the intensive chemo, and then 2 weeks after to make sure there's no side effects or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, I was like, okay, let's go for it. I want to get the cure. I just want to get it over with.
Yeah.
And then after a while, another part of me was saying, well, maybe not. Maybe. And so at the end of his, recommendation, I said, well, I don't know. I said, I don't know about 30 days in the hospital. That seems like something I would be against, just holistically. It's not something I'm looking forward
I'm with
to.
you. And what was his reaction?
His reaction was, I understand, and it's the reason I'm recommending it is because you're young and you're healthy and you caught it early, and you're a good candidate because you would tolerate it better than most. Okay. So I thought to myself, well, if the only reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to tolerate it better than most, then it's not necessarily the path I think I should jump down right away.
Yes.
So I said to myself, at the end of his spiel, I was like, well, what other options are there?
Yeah, sure.
What else
What's
could I
plan
do
B, Doc?
this?
What's plan B?
Yeah. What's plan B?
Yeah.
So he said, well, he goes, plan B is you could do outpatient chemotherapy shots where it's not intravenous. It's basically 2 shots in your belly for 7 days in a row, and then you wait another 2 or 3 weeks, and that's called a cycle.
Okay.
And in addition to that, you take some other pills on top of it that helps with it, or so or so it says. So the idea behind doing the chemo on outpatient is to see whether or not, and this was in my mind, is to see whether or not I would respond to the lower intensity before I go to the higher intensity. And so the doctor said, yeah, you can do that. He goes, if the low intensity doesn't work, he goes, you can always pivot to the high intensity. Great. That was a way for me to like kind of end that conversation. So I said, okay, I'll go back to my hematologist, who's local. She can give me the shots, and monitor my blood level and so forth.
And let's see where it goes from there.
And see where it goes from there. Yeah. So I go back to her, and she knows the plan. Yeah. And she goes, okay, I'll recommend you do like at least 2 cycles of shots, before we retest the bone marrow.
Okay.
So I said, all right, fine. So I did the shots.
How was the communication? Sorry, how was the communication between the doctors? Because sometimes you hear in the American healthcare system, there's a bit.
They do.
Okay.
No, they do communicate.
Okay. So
they were very good about following it up, and also my notes are online on a website that they use as well.
Okay.
An internal website. So So I took the first round of shots. And it really didn't feel too good. Very, very, very constipated, very lightheaded. Didn't have a lot of energy. Was not a good experience, right? So I did it for 7 days, and I came back, and then she said, "Okay, we're going to wait 3 weeks, and then we're going to start another cycle." I said, "No." I said, "Let's do another bone marrow now, because I want to know where I'm at from the last cycle, and if I'm going to do something again, I want to know how effective the last one was before I do."
With you.
So she's like, "Okay, fine," and that's when she gave me the second bone marrow, which she hit the sciatic nerve and threw me for a loop. But when that came back, she said, "You don't have leukemia anymore. It's gone. You're cancer free." So I said, "Well, it's fantastic, isn't it?" So she didn't seem too excited, not excited as I was, but
maybe she was just more. Maybe she was, I don't know, caught off guard. Maybe surprised.
Yeah, maybe she thought, hey, this guy's like, what is he doing? He's throwing our whole, profit motive into the tank. He's cured. That's not supposed to happen.
Because I can't.
How do they make money off you now?
Yeah, I can't believe that. Like, you are a normal, quote unquote, normal case. Because I haven't checked the stats and stuff, but I mean, to be cured after one sort of outpatient cycle seems to me like a miracle.
That it was to me, and I think to them it might have been a miracle as well.
Yeah.
Because they were like, you're going to be on this long-term plan. And eventually we can give you the outpatient shots, but if they don't work, you're going to have to pivot back to the transplant idea and be subjected to, and I saw my father-in-law go through chemo twice.
Okay.
And it's not fun.
No.
He was a printer for like 45 years for the New York Academy of Sciences, and he worked in a small room with no ventilation. And after that long of a time, he developed stomach cancer.
Wow.
So they treated him with chemotherapy for the stomach cancer. The stomach cancer was cured, but then the chemotherapy caused leukemia. Yeah. And the only thing they could do is treat him with more chemo, and then that killed him. But I saw him wither away from like this, normal dude like you and me, right? Yeah. Just to the point where he was just like almost like skin and bones. And the last time I saw him, I just had felt so bad for him, because to see the deterioration of someone who you love, go through that in a short period of time, is heartbreaking. And that really
didn't want to go through that.
I didn't want to go through that. No. And not only did I want to go through it because of my father-in-law, because of my sister, may she rest in peace. She died when she was 32 from a brain tumor that metastasized into malignant brain cancer. And we were heartbroken. We had a big family, and we had a close neighborhood and big neighborhood in the city, and 1,000 people came to her memorial, and she was loved, and she was the youngest of 5. But we planted a crepe myrtle tree in her memory in Brooklyn, and it's still there today, 20 years later.
Awesome.
We go there once a year to remember her. So I drew some strength from her, and thought to myself, what would she do? What
Yeah.
would she say to me? She would say, Robert, just follow your heart, and
Mm.
you don't listen to anybody, but listen to yourself. And I thought to myself, I've always done that.
Yeah.
I've always listened to myself and my body. And by nature, I'm a skeptical person. Maybe not 100% cynical, but those who know me and know what I've been through,
Yeah.
I have to question everything.
Yeah.
Last two words of my book. And so I did, and the doctors said after the leukemia was gone, she said, "Well, wait a minute, because you still have low red blood cells, you still have anemia."
Mm.
So anemia is where your bone marrow cannot produce red blood cells on its own.
Mm.
Okay. So in the past, while I was waiting for all this other treatment, I had gotten blood transfusions,
Mm.
okay, in order to get my red blood cells back up, and it
Yes.
worked. I got like four different times. I got 2 liters each.
Okay.
So thank you to all the people out there. I don't know who you are. I asked,
Donate
they
blood.
wouldn't tell me who the donors were. So
Go and donate blood. We've got a shortage. I mean, there's a
yeah,
global shortage of
please
blood,
donate.
and people don't know platelets as well. For those that don't have enough platelets, go and
Yeah,
donate, please. Please
that's
go and
right.
donate.
That's right, because ambulances especially, they have very low
Yes.
amount of blood. So anyway, I said, okay, well, my bone marrow is still not functioning properly.
Mm.
So there's I had looked. She was like, well, maybe you need to go back down to the road of the chemo and the transplant, yada yada yada.
Mm.
So I was like, no, because I had researched what my other options were
Yeah.
in my exact situation. I said, what about this? And it turned out that there's a shot that they can give you that in my situation helps your bone marrow produce its own red blood cells again. It's like a booster. It helps.
What's it
helps
called?
it.
Do you remember what
And
it's
it's called
called?
a Procrit
Okay.
or Retrocrit.
Okay.
And those are the 2 drugs that help
Okay.
your bone marrow come back from a situation that I was in, and the trauma that my bone marrow had gone through.
Yes.
So when they tested the bone marrow, and they had to try to find out what was not the exact cause, but was the cause either genetic or was it environmental?
Yeah.
So there's 2 forms of leukemia. You can get leukemia from things like living next to the power lines, to drinking toxic water,
Yes.
to breathing bad air. Lots of things could cause to remember the Roundup pesticide settlement.
Roundup. Yeah.
Okay, that caused cancer and killed people, and that was a pesticide. So
Could be forever
interestingly
chemicals.
enough,
Could be anything.
yeah. So in my case, they did the testing. They said it wasn't genetic. So my family was glad to hear that. Had nothing to do with my sister's tumor. That was a one-off. That
Okay.
wasn't genetic.
Good.
Actually, matter of fact, today I got a call this morning with a secondary test where they actually checked for all other kinds of cancers, and it turned out also everything was negative. So, knocking on wood,
Good.
that everything genetically means my family's not at risk, and that puts me less at risk of it coming back, because it's not genetic, right?
Which is where I sort of want to end our conversation with remission. And what is it like living in remission? Is it something at the back of your head? Is it something that you're conscious of? Has it changed you in any way? I mean, I know Rob's still Rob, but I mean, when you go through something like this, like trauma, and your body goes through it, I mean, it must alter you in some way.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, it makes you appreciate, like, when you're opening your eyes every day, you're like, and when I had the cancer, and before it was gone, I woke up every day like, fuck, this sucks. I got cancer. People die from this shit.
Yeah.
What the fuck am I going to do?
Yeah.
I was really not happy, and I was kind of depressed and a little angry at my situation, because I had kept healthy my whole life. I eat good, I exercise.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck? Why me, right?
Yeah.
So, and then when she said you had no cancer, I was floored again. I was like, you see,
Yeah,
I knew I was going to beat this thing, you know. And then, so then after I took the 2 shots of the Procrit, it got me back to almost normal red blood cell level. So my bone marrow is producing RBCs on its own.
Yeah.
No need for me to go for intensive chemo. My bone marrow is healed. I'm healed on my own, without the intensive chemo and without their recommendations. And there before the grace of God you lie, Rocco.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Rob, I hope your story inspires others that are battling cancer, maybe others that do not have the levels of patient advocacy that you have. I mean, for a start, you chose outpatient yourself. You said, no, I'm not going to do this. What's plan B? Then you said, okay, cool, but I know about this treatment. So those are 2 forks in the road where you made the decision for your own life, and it wasn't in the healthcare providers'
interest.
hands. Yes, interest, hands, whatever you want to call it. But I hope it inspires other people to maybe take a second look at their struggles and their journeys. Say, all right, cool. Maybe I need to do something different here.
Right. Just ask questions and keep an open mind. Don't necessarily do what they tell you to do. Because I mean, they're good people, and the doctors, they want to do a good job, but you really have to, tailor the treatment to what they say, and then what you do on your own research, and then how you feel about treating yourself.
Awesome. Robert, if the listeners want to go and connect with you, where can they do that?
Well, you connect with me on LinkedIn.
Go and follow Rob on LinkedIn. Go and follow all his amazing content, his journey. If you are on the same journey as Rob, connect with him, talk with him. I think it's amazing. I think your journey is amazing. I think you are amazing. Like I said, you're a tough son of a bitch, and it's going to take more than a little bit of
cancer to
kick your ass.
That's right. And for everybody with cancer out there, I'm praying for you, and I'm hoping that it comes out well for you, like it did for me. And just know that you're not alone, whoever you are. Talk to somebody about how you're feeling about it, and it makes a world of difference. It really, really does. And donate blood.
And donate blood. All your links in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your journey. Much appreciated. And to our listeners, peace, love, and prosperity. Catch you in the next one.
I will overcome. There's nothing in this world that can't be done. From city streets to your ears, hear the calls. Fight. 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 Don't give in, no, don't give up. In the world we make our own luck. Listen to yourself and make the rules. Fight. 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 I'm sorry, accept this. There has to be another way. I'm about to forge a winding way. Trust in me, I'll show you how. Forever now, standing tall. Fight. Fight. Never give up. Never give up. No! Never give up, never give up, never give up, never accept this. There has to be another way, a path to forge a winding way. Trust in me, I'll show you how. Forever now stand